Hello there, Atheist Junior here, your friend and humble narrator. Yes, I nailed that intro. Okay, so today I'm going a bit old school with our video presentation. Usually I use OBS to stream, but I've been having a lot of problems with it. So as I normally do, but today it was just lagging like really badly. And I don't know, I just couldn't figure it out. So I'm going to have to yell at my producer Peter to help me with it later. But for now, I figured, we'll just do a StreamYard, a good old 720p StreamYard stream without even any green screen backgrounds, because you guys aren't here for the fancy video effects. You're here for my commentary, of course. I hope. I see you in the audience. Okay, full disclosure. This debate is between Chen and Kent Hovind. And Ian is a friend of the channel. He's one of my patrons. And in preparation for this debate, he told me that this debate is not about the science. It's not about debunking Kent on the science. It's strictly trolling him, which I can get behind, I mean, it's how I started my channel. But I think he undersells himself on the amount of good scientific points that he brought up in the debate. Although I haven't seen the whole thing, and we won't get to watch the entire thing here because it's like 2 hours. But we're gonna watch the openings. I skipped over Kent's little intro, so it's gonna start at Ian's opening statement, and I would like to skip ahead to the open discussion, but there's some important stuff in the beginning, so we're just gonna start there.
And that way I won't miss him. Okay, Ian, we're going to hand it over to you. You can do your intro and your opening statement all at the same time. So thank you for being here, and the floor is all yours.
Hey, thanks very much for that, Donnie. Can just double checking, can you guys see the share screen?
Yes.
Right, excellent. And I did promise Kent in our back and forth in terms of text that I'll try and bring something new and interesting. I know Kent's probably done like tens of these debates, and it's probably a bit boring for Kent now. So hopefully I'll have something he's not heard of before, but I'll also have a few things I think that has been rarely discussed with Kent. So, trying to keep it interesting. So in terms of my introduction, my name is Ian Chen. That's not my wife. That's a picture of my wife. A little nod to Kent and his humor there.
Oh, it begins.
So I just want to kind of talk through a few things. That's my contact details at the bottom if anyone.
She is lovely, by the way. Ian, you're a very lucky man. So congratulations. A tip of the hat.
Wants to reach out to me for further information on anything that I kind of discussed today. But I want to kind of make the point that the opinions here today are my own and not the views of my employer. I'm conducting this debate on my own personal time and not during work hours. And I really wanted to kind of mention this because my last debate with Nephilim P, he tried to get me fired. So I just want to make it clear, these are my opinions. It's done on my own time, nothing to do with my work at all. I also want to thank Kent for the debate. I think in our back and forth in our messages, he mentioned that he had done, I think, over 280. I think he said 283. I mean, that's freaking amazing. 283 debates. So I think I can confidently say that I'm in the presence of a master debater of such caliber. And I hope that after this debate today, that it'll help me polish my master debating skills. I also want to.
Oh my! Oh my God! Oh my goodness!
State that whilst the scientific definition of evolution is a change in heritable characteristics of biological population over successive generations, I will, for the purpose of this debate, accept Kent's 6 levels of evolution. So, Kent, you can talk about it, but I'm actually agreeing. Let's use your definition of evolution, your 6 different evolution, and we'll take it from there. I also want to note that I have a PhD in biblical studies from Rockville University. The website that I got it from is now defunct, but I purchased it for $875. So if Kent wants to call me doctor, I will certainly return the favor to him. And I also want Kent to know that I will not be taking assertions or statements as scientific evidence. I will only accept peer-reviewed scientific papers as the highest level of evidence. And I noticed that in Kent's introduction, he went through a whole bunch of biblical references. sorry, Kent, biblical passages and references have no meaning to me, and to me does not count as any evidence of any sort. And I just want to point out that Kent, I know you like to look up Google and Wikipedia as evidence. So I Google Ken Hovind, and I know that you're not going to agree with this content. So I want you to know that if you want me to accept Google sources, then you'll have to accept this content as well. So just a point.
Oh shit. Oh god. Wow. Oh my gosh.
Want to kind of note that, keep it to peer-reviewed scientific articles as the highest level of evidence. And that's my introduction. I probably should note, Donnie, that I do have quite a lot of things that I do want to talk about. If you give me like a 3-minute warning, what I'll do is I'll cut it off there and I'll go straight to my conclusion, as in the conclusion of my opening statement, if that makes sense.
The dead silence, the fucking dead. Oh my god, the trolling, the salt, the dead silence. It's like an angel's kiss.
Any questions, or should I move on to the opening statement? Hello?
Oh no, you killed them. What have you done, Ian?
Hello?
You've killed them. Oh god. So, how are you guys
What's
doing?
happened?
You've
You
trolled
guys hear
them.
me?
You've trolled them to death, Ian. What have you done? Oh, this is awkward. Okay, there we go.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
It wouldn't be an SFT debate without some type of technical problems, right?
You're good. You're good.
Okay,
Skip ahead a
brilliant.
little
Let me just share screen again. Sorry about that. And
No worries.
I'll kick it off. Yeah, sorry about that confusion, guys. All right, you can see that opening statement. So
According to evolution, things get better
the
automatically.
debate topic today is there reasonable evidence for evolution? And I just want to kind of say that evolution is supported by almost every scientific discipline, over 100 of them. I've listed some of these down, could not fit it all into one slide, but I put down what I thought were the big ones. And what I'll go through today is multiple lines of evidence from different scientific disciplines. And I'm trying to give evidences that I'm pretty sure Kent really discusses or is kind of new to him, just to keep it interesting for him and to the audience as well. Now, I know Kent will probably say and cry out that we should be debating one topic at a time. So my question to Kent is really not each of these specific evidences, but really, how is it that he, as a young Earth creationist, but with his belief, believes that every evidence from over 100 scientific disciplines can be wrong? So I know Kent, mate, you are an unremarkable man. And what I mean by unremarkable, I don't mean it as an ad hominem. I mean that you are unremarkable to the science. You and I do not have any formal education or work experience in the science that we'll be discussing together today. So how can you, as an unremarkable man, tell me that millions of PhDs across over 100 different scientific disciplines are wrong? How are you the only one that is right, but all these millions of research scientists are incorrect? That to me is absolutely not believable at all. Yaks literally believe in a giant conspiracy larger than what flat earthers do. And what I'll be showing today is a range of evidences, as I said, from areas that maybe Ken has not heard or really delved into as much in the past. I also want to point out that there are approximately 9 million research scientists in the world, and almost 0 of them are young Earth creationists. Now, a bit of a joke coming up here, but Ken, I know you believe that I think I came from a rock, but you literally believe that. It's in your Bible. God fashioned humans or Adam from clay. You literally believe that humans.
Yeah, so this right here is a great point. So this comment says, what I don't understand is why don't more people don't just prepare using Kent's seminars? If you prepare your notes based on that, you have counters for everything he says. And this is something that this is the philosophy that I went into my debate with Hovind. I used this philosophy going in because what I wanted to do is ideally, I didn't get to do this, but I wanted to sort of create a flow chart where you have the arguments or the topics that you know are going to come up, and then going off of that, you have the response you know Kent is going to give, and then you could have another bubble coming off of that. That would be something that I could say, and then Kent's likely response to that. You could create a flow chart that has every contingency of what Kent could say. So you'd be 100% prepared. It would take a long time, but it is doable. I didn't get to do that because I sort of ran out of time. And it is impossible to predict exactly what he's going to say. Like, while he is very predictable in his talking points, he has a lot of them. So it is hard to predict exactly what he's going to say, because I thought that the gill slits was going to dominate our debate, but it really didn't come up that much.
Came from a rock. So Ken, on the way back home, I stepped on a pebble. So I do apologize if I stepped on your cousin. If you can just pass on my apologies, that would be great. And Kent, because I think you're a very hard man to convince that evolution is true, I've got a new name for you, and I'm going to call you Rock Hard Kent. My first line of evidence is really around genetics, and I'm going to be focusing on ALU sign, short interspecies nuclear elements. But first, I want to talk about transposons. Now, transposons are DNA sequences that can change its position within a genome, and it makes up 45% of the human genome. A really
hold on. You can't don't slap and run. Okay, you can't slap and run. Did he just say I'm going to call you Rock Hard Kent from now on? Okay. What? Oh, God.
A huge part of it. There are two classes of transposons. One, DNA transposons. They really act as a copy and paste. They copy strips of DNA and copies it to other parts of the chromosomes, or even different chromosomes, and they make up about 3% of the human genome. Then there are retrotransposons that act as a cut and paste that make up 42% of the human genome. So below in the figure, you can see an example of this. A retrotransposon will cut that 3 out on one side and place it in a different part of the chromosome. It's important to note that it's not also the same chromosome that it can place it in, but also different chromosomes as well. Now, specific on retrotransposons, which as you know, is 42% of the human genome, I want to talk about ALU signs, so short interpairs nuclear elements. And what I want to say here is that they make up 11% of the human genome, or 1.3 million insertions. Now, these are not ERVs, which we know are remnants of viruses, whilst you and Donnie obviously don't believe that. And they're about 250 or 300. We're talking about 1.3 million DNA insertions here. So a fair bit there. Now, most ALU mutations occur in non-coding regions, and thus they have no discernible impact on humans at all. In fact, once they are inserted, they are rarely removed, and over 99% of them do nothing whatsoever. Those small 1% that are inserted in the coding regions, they can result in inherited diseases. And we've identified ALU as the cause for things like some breast cancers, through to diabetes, Alzheimer's, even lung and gastric cancer as well. We've implicated ALU in over 50 diseases, including cancers. A very small few of them we have found to be beneficial, and we've seen some of them give improvements in endurance and strength, as well as responsible for 3-color visions in old world primates. Interestingly, when we look at ALUs, we cross-confirm DNA sequencing that was done in the 1950s that showed that chimpanzees were our closest relative to gorillas. And that's just another example of a cross-confirmation between scientific disciplines. Now, ALU insertions appears only in nuclear DNA, so therefore it's passed down to your offspring. So we can compare ALU insertions with other primates, and we can work out a phylogeny tree, because a shared ALU means a common ancestor. Now, as I said, there are 1.3 million ALUs, not the several hundred of ERVs that I share between primates, 1.3 million. They're the same size, the same insertions in exactly the same place and the same chromosome in all the different primates. Now, apart from the 5,000 or so that are specifically unique to Homo sapiens, they are all shared exactly the same with other primates. And you can see from the chart on the right how we can work out the common ancestor between the extant primates today based on the similarities of ALU. Now, the chances of 1.3 million insertions being in the exact same spot between Homo sapiens and different primates is more than finding one specific atom in all the atoms in the universe across 1 million different universes. Now, I know yaks like to use big numbers like what are the chances of abiogenesis forming, or what are the chances of these exact fine-tuning of the universe? Well, these odds are even less than that. So the chances of it being random obviously is not believable. Now, ALU insertions are so accurate that genetic tests can use it to pinpoint exactly where your ancestors are from, down to specific locations. So we know by using ALU insertions, for example, that North American Indians came from East Asians, and they likely came across via the Bering Bridge. And we've cross-confirmed this with anthropological and archaeological evidence as well. Another example of evidences that are cross-confirmed between different scientific disciplines. You can see on the right there just an example of ALU. It's probably hard to kind of clearly see, but example of ALU insertions in Africa where you can kind of pinpoint which of these different countries your ancestors could come from based on the commonality of those ALU insertions. So my question to Ken really is simple. If he can't, or maybe after we discuss why he believes that he knows more than 100 different scientific disciplines across 9 million research scientists, that YEX are therefore correct, then we can focus on ALUs. And specifically, how does he explain ALU in a YEC worldview? If he thinks God made them, why do 99% of them do nothing at all? If he thinks that there are errors, which I've heard him say about ERVs before, how do you get 1.3 million errors that are shared exactly the same between different primates? If he thinks that it's genetic degradation or genetic entropy, which I think Donnie may kind of allude to in some cases, then how are the majority of these ALU insertions in non-coding areas do nothing at all? And why is this degradation once again in the exact same places across different primates? Now we're talking about one.
Okay, so this is going to be my first point of criticism for his strategy here. And what I say to everybody who comes to me saying, I have a debate with Kent coming up, do you have any advice? Or people who I've coached like James W., who we had several meetings where we went over notes and I gave him pointers. And my number one piece of advice to people is simplify your arguments. Okay, this is an overload of information. Okay, I'm having trouble even keeping track of all this stuff. So you already know Kent's not listening to this. Kent's not listening to this. And I love the first question. The question about what makes you special to where you think that you're right and all these other scientists and even younger creationists are wrong. And that little wrinkle, I think, is what makes the question really brilliant. Because of course Kent's going to say, oh, well, the scientists are right and I'm wrong. But asking why, and also asking why are you right and these other young earth creationists who are supposedly in your camp are wrong, this question will never be answered. And this question is all you need, really. Honestly, it's great to get into the science, ERVs and stuff, but to me it's superfluous, I think, because all you need, that first question is so good that's the only one that you need for the whole debate, because he's never going to answer it and you can just keep hammering it into him. It's great. But I love everything he's done so far. That would be my only point of criticism. And Ian did say that he wants me to not hold back in my critiques of his debate. So I'm not going to.
1.3 million here. We're not talking about a handful. 1.3 million, exactly the same. Now, obviously, common ancestry easily explains this. My second piece of evidence, and I know Ken has said this before, and I promise after this, Ken, the other stuff will be fairly new. So Rockhard Kent believes there is no such thing as a geologic column. Now, he should talk to Andrew Snelling, who has a PhD at Answers in Genesis, who absolutely believes there is a geological column and that there are index fossils as well. Now, Rockhard Kent has also stated that we don't know anything about the fossil except that it died. But actually, what we do know is we know a lot about the fossils. We know that, for example, based on their teeth, what they ate, based on their morphology, did they live mainly in land and water? We sometimes find fossils with skin impressions or fossilized food in the stomach. Even where they are in the environment, we can kind of deduce a whole bunch of stuff. So we know more than just that it died. Now, Ken also says that phylogeny is just lines on paper, totally misrepresenting the fact that we draw those lines based on countless evidence and data. So whilst I do agree with Kent that a specific fossil, we don't know whether they had children, well, we definitely know that they had parents. So I'm going to show you guys in the audience some photos. And I know that YEX don't understand science. And Rock Hard Ken and his audience, I don't expect you to know the science at all. What I expect you to use are your eyeballs, because I know Yex. One thing that Yex are good at is they have a PhD in eyeball science. So I'm going to show
Rock Hard Kent and his eyeballs.
you some pictures, and I'm going to try and demonstrate.
I'm Dr. Rock Hard Kent Hovind, PhD in erectology. Erection.
Try phylogeny through these pictures. So the first picture here is basically a phylogeny, basically the transition from from dinosaurs to birds. Now I want you to focus on the duck at the bottom left and just follow the line through to the dinosaur on the top left. You can see through each small changes, its parents becoming more and more like the dinosaur on the top left.
This is a religion, okay?
Now, given time, I won't go into too much detail, but I'll focus on whales as well. Once again, look at the whale at the bottom and look at the successes, little changes that the parents will have, so it becomes a more marine adapted animal to a land adapted animal as well. You see the hole in the top of the head slowly migrate to the forward part of the head. The flippers kind of extending and becoming limbs.
The blowhole migrating from the front snout of a four-legged land-dwelling animal moving to the top where it would be a blowhole on a whale actually moves so slowly that scientists have such a detailed fossil record of this transition that they can measure millimeters per million years of movement of that opening. That's how detailed the fossil record is of that change. It's one of the best pieces of evidence in all of paleontology for evolution, is the whale evolution from land-dwelling tetrapods to cetaceans. Hovind.
And so forth. Now, what I kind of want to show the audience today is look at the two skulls below. Now, evolution states that bears come from the Caniformia order, which basically translates to dog-like carnivores. And this order includes things like bears and seals. So a question to Rock Hard Ken and the audience is, tell me which of this skull is a black bear and which of this skull is a harbor seal. Even Kurt Wise from AIG says that seals are marine adapted bears. So use your eyeballs, guys. Look at it. Can you not see how similar some of these are? Even with the bears and seals, I know Kent will think there are different kinds, but look how exactly the same they are. Now, my next piece of evidence is around archaeology. Now, according to AIG, Noah's flood occurred in 2348 BC. And AIG uses radiometric dating, thermoluminescent dating, even oxidizable carbon ratio dating. I won't go into detail what these are, but they use these different dating methods to prove that the stories in the Bible are true. They use it to date the Dead Sea Scrolls. They use it to show the kingdom of Judah existed. They use it to show that there was a destruction of Sodom and even the existence of King David. Now, if I were to use the exact same dating methods that AIG uses, well, we can see architecture and we can date those architecture. And there's a whole bunch of them that you can see listed now as happening before Noah's flood.
So Ian, and before you continue, well, I apologize, Ian. You just hit the 11-minute mark. I just wanted to.
I'm just going to interrupt you real quick. Donnie interrupting. I'm just going to interrupt. Sorry for interrupting you. So, no. I'm sorry. No, Hovind.
Notify you just hit the 11-minute mark.
Yes, I'm gonna skip through so you guys will get a sense of the things I would like to talk about, but maybe for another debate. So using the same dating methods. Oh no, thanks very much for that, Donnie. Really appreciate it. So guys, using the same dating methods that AIG themselves agree with, it's as if they've magically gone, well, if it's past the 6,000 years mark, it must be false. But we're using the same way they're dating it, the same evidence that they're using to date parts of the Bible and what's in the Bible as being true, and dating other things like these architecture that basically shows it's how it happened before Noah's flood. The one thing I do want to note, though, is I've heard a video from Donnie talking about the pyramids of Giza and trying to retrofit that into the flood timeline. Well, there are 5 pyramids that are equally as large that was built before that, but no one talks about that. So one of them is the pyramid of those are, that looks like it occurred at least 300 years before Noah's flood. So that's just a point I wanted to make. So I'm going to skip to these fairly quickly as well, given the time there. Human civilizations, a whole bunch of human civilizations that did not know that a flood was occurring. You can see where the flood is and everything on the left, anything basically from the ancient Chinese to South America, Indus Valley to ancient Egypt to Sumerians, even the Australian Aboriginals at 50,000 years. So that's a point I would have liked to cover. Same thing, using the same dating methods, cave paintings. We have cave paintings that were basically created before the universe was created. So that's interesting as well. But the point I kind of want to dwell on here is linguistics. So the Tower of Babel, according to AIG, occurred in 2242 BC. Yet we have evidence of pictographs and writings that occurred before that. Sumerian and Egyptian predominantly. And we have evidence of an ancient proto-language called Proto-Afro-Asiatic that's been dated at 6,000 to 11,000 BC, of which the Egyptian language and Semitic language today, where we have written evidence of about 1,000 years before the Tower of Babel, obviously that language occurred before the creation of the universe. So once again, we can have a chat about that as well. I won't go into these slides to kind of say that with a human migration and how we know people migrated obviously don't fit a YEC timeline. This slide here is just an example of science that cross-confirms different disciplines. We know the Austronesian language came from Taiwan and kind of migrated that down through to Southeast Asia and into the islands of Melanesia and Polynesia. We can see the exact same migration happening with mtDNA analysis, and we can see the exact same thing when we look at archaeological finds in terms of human migration. So this,
you can see Kent is he's still way back on dinosaurs turned to birds. Like, it's like, Ian, like, this is too much. Like, just simmer down a little bit. Okay. Like, this is a little bit too much information, but, great points that you've brought up. They're all great points, but you don't need that many great points. All you need is, in my opinion, if you're going to debate Kent Hovind, I would recommend going in with 3 major arguments. That's all you need. Just three, and have a question for each. So I would just say, out of these, I would pick the strongest arguments would probably be, why are you special and the scientists and the other YECs are wrong? The dating of stuff that's older than the flood, a great argument as well. And the dinosaur to bird transition, or whales to land-dwelling animals to cetaceans. That's all you need. Just three. That's all you need. Don't have to overcomplicate things.
this slide is
Great
really
job. Great points though. Great opening. These are all excellent points, but it's more than necessary. That's all I'm saying.
Just to show how we cross-confirm evidences by different scientific disciplines, and we just don't take basically what a book says. Now, what I do kind of want to say here is, why am I doing this? And the reason I'm doing this is I came across an interesting stat I kind of want to share with people today, and that is fundamental Christians make up an extraordinary high percentage of people in the U.S. federal population. 99.9% of criminals are religious, of which a fair bunch of them, at 57%, are Christians. Atheists only make up 0.1% of that. During the same time, and these are data from the USA, during the same time, there were 3% of people who claimed that they were atheists in the USA. So I want to kind of marry this down to, numbers that I hope the audience understand. In the USA, 698 people per 100,000 are in jail. In Australia, that's 218 per 100,000. What's interesting thing is that USA has 4% of atheists, and Australia has 30.1% atheists. So look, to me, if I just were to look at these facts, I would think the more or the less fundamental we are as a society, potentially the less crimes. Yeah. So my last slide here, question for Ken. It's very simple. Explain why in a YEC worldview, every science across every scientific discipline, and over 100 of them, 9 million research scientists, why are you saying all of these are wrong? How is that even believable at all? But if we discuss that and Kent wants to go into more detail, then I wanted to have a discussion on ALUs. So explain ALU sign elements in a YEC worldview. If he thinks God made them, why do 99% of them do nothing at all? If he thinks there are errors, how do you get 1.3 million errors shared exactly the same between Homo sapiens and all the other primates? If he thinks there's genetic entropy or genetic degradation, why is the majority of these ALU insertions in non-coding genes that do nothing at all? and how come the degradation is once again in the exact same place between humans and primates. And I want specifics, Ken. I don't want vague hand gesturings or what you did with the ERV, where you went through a 30-minute video rebuttal, where you spent 25 minutes defining what ERVs were and 5 minutes quoting from Bible passages. So we're going to get down and deep into this as well and try and pull the science out and maybe have a discussion on science. So I'll stop there and kind of thank everyone for listening and their time, and Kent as well.
Okay, I appreciate it, Ian. That looks like it was about, I know you did your intro as well, so it was about 16 minutes in total. So let's say roughly maybe 13 or 14 minutes for the opening statement. Ian, I apologize about the minute there. I thought that was a good time to run up and get my coffee, but apparently...
No. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But I'm all good. I'm getting caffeine.
I like how he's just interrupting Donnie right back. That is fucking hilarious. Oh man, great opening though. Great opening. Not perfect. It's not The Godfather Part 2, but certainly not Godfather Part 3. So we can call it Godfather the original, the first one. Great movie. You know, it's not as good as the second one.
Here. So anyways, we're going to hand it over to Kent. Kent, brother, it looks like someone on your end might have muted yourself. So we'll have to get somebody to unmute you there. And we'll give you equal time, 13, 14 minutes, roughly that. If you're ready.
Why is Kent not wearing headphones? Why does everyone not have headphones? Oh, we have a super chat from Ian Chen himself for $2.99 Australian. Says AJ rocks. Well, thank you. That is true. I have one of the best channels on YouTube. Definitely top 17 channels named Atheist Junior on YouTube. I'm just kidding.
Well, thank you, sir. I've requested over and over that we do one.
His voice is like nails on a chalkboard. It's like, oh God, Hovind, ah. Oh God, it's like causing physical pain. Hovind.
One topic at a time. He brought up about 30 different topics.
Okay, chat. Well, we can keep track of how many topics Kent brings up. Also, Kent, it's a debate. Stop whining about there being more than one topic. It's a debate. You know, the question is there evidence for evolution? Sorry that there's so many different lines of evidence for evolution that debaters can bring up lots of topics, but the topic is all under the umbrella of evidence for evolution. You see the umbrella? Okay, the umbrella is evidence for evolution. The different topics are under that same category. So it's not really 30 different topics, is it now, Kent? You're just complaining. So stop whining about there being, there's 30 different topics. Hovind. And we'll keep track of how many he brings up.
I think that's kind of unfair. I'll not be able to cover them all. So let's just pick the best one. And then at the end, he asked me questions about two of them. He brought up so many things. Let me just get a few of them here. Let's see. As far as him, he throws out all these numbers that only 99% believe ABC. I don't believe those numbers.
Okay, Kent, shut up. Okay, from Vandalia 1998 for $4.99. We have a super chat. It says, I don't have the temperament to debate Kent. My anxiety would call him an idiot a few minutes in. Well, if you've listened to my last phone call with Kent, that is exactly how it went. I got mad and started cursing and told him to shut up and hung up the phone. I do commend some people because Kent knows how to get under people's skin.
First of all, and that certainly wouldn't matter. I think you'd find 99% of all the scientists in Soviet Union believe in communism, because if you don't, you end up in Siberia or gone, disappear. I believe you'll find 99 or 90, probably 100% of all the scientists in Iraq believe in Islam. It doesn't make it true. It just means that's an oppressive type of government. I think there's an oppression in this country against publishing in peer-reviewed journals if you don't believe in evolution. It just won't get published. And you won't get a job at a university if you don't follow the party line. So evolution is very similar in this country as far as its squelching of opposition to communism or Islam in other countries that do the same thing. How many scientists in North Korea would dare to stand up and say, I don't believe in evolution, I don't believe in communism? there's a great oppression. That's another story, but it does. The point is, the numbers don't matter. What is the truth? The truth is, nobody has ever seen a bird produce a non-bird. Birds make baby birds every time without exception. And yet you want to believe dinosaurs turned into birds. No farmer in the history of the world has ever seen any animal produce a different kind of offspring. You had images where you drew lines on paper connecting a dinosaur to a bird. Well, that's beautiful artwork, but that's not science. That's illusion. That's a magic trick. Fool everybody. So the fact that you can draw lines on paper and say this one evolved from that one, nobody's ever seen any animal or plant produce offspring other than its kind. The Bible says they'll bring forth after their kind. Let's just stick with animals for now instead of plants to make it simpler. Every farmer in the history of the universe will tell you cows produce cows, horses produce horses. There are no exceptions. There are varieties within that kind. There are 250 varieties of cows now. Farmers have selectively bred cows. Some farmers want to get more beef, so they breed beef cattle. Some want to get more milk, and they breed toward more milk cattle. But they're still a cow. So they have artificially selected a certain type of the gene code for their particular, what do they want to grow or raise? Same with sheep or anything else.
That's evolution. That's evolution. Natural selection is a mechanism of evolution. Artificial selection is a mechanism of evolution. Yeah, cows produce cows. That's correct. A cow gives birth to a cow. That baby is going to be a cow, but that baby is not going to be genetically identical to its parent. It's going to have differences within the genetic code, and those differences are mutations. Every mutation is a new piece of genetic information. Now, most of the time, those mutations, those differences are going to be, they're going to not do anything. They're going to be indifferent. Sometimes they're going to cause a change that is harmful or deleterious. But every now and then, you're going to get a change that is beneficial. And those farmers can breed trying to get those beneficial changes specifically. I love how Kent Hovind right here is describing artificial selection, but in the same debate, he'll probably say, oh, there's no such thing as beneficial mutations. Well, how do you think those farmers got those cows that gave more milk? Through beneficial mutations. Hovind?
Most of the varieties that we have today, like with dogs, for example, everybody's familiar with that. Nearly all of the varieties of dog have been created by man for some particular purpose.
Okay, well, you guys can vote 1 in chat to skip ahead to the next part, or 2 to keep playing it.
Some have tried to emphasize speed, and they get the greyhound and they race them, and they always try to breed the fastest ones and get them faster and faster. I'd be willing to predict, Ian, no matter how many times you crossbreed dogs, you will never get a dog that'll go 500 miles an hour, or your metric system, okay? 800 kilometers per hour. I'd be willing to bet it'll never happen. There's a limit. And this is what you evolutionists do not understand or do not want to understand. Yes, there are varieties, certainly, but they're limited. They have rodeos where they have cows that they jump cows over fences. Cowboy gets on there, puts a saddle on there, and jumps the cow. I'd be willing to bet you could make your cow work out every day, lift weights, eat nothing but the best grass and everything else, and you'll never get a cow that'll jump over the moon. There's a limit. I don't know if they've reached the limit or not, but that's what the Olympics and all the, that kind of stuff is for, to who can break the record of anything, whether it's the fastest or the lift the most weights or whatever. But there are limits. They have bodybuilders now.
Okay, looks like the chat has decided. So I'm going to skip ahead to about 40 minutes. Yeah.
Scientists are wrong, not just across geological column or evolution or whatever, across 100 different scientific disciplines. That was the main question. And then what I then showed was evidences within those disciplines that we can then talk about if you want to, as to kind of show that it's not a young Earth. So that was my main question. And then I guess the second point was really to go on, well, if you want to focus on a specific one, my big one was ALU, which you say you need to do more research, which is fine. So hey, before I kind of go into my proper rebuttal, I just want to ask Kent, just two questions. Can you just define for myself and the audience, I know you kind of touched on it, but what is your definition of the word science?
Well, the word science comes from the Latin word "scire," which means to know. What do we know? All through history, science has been defined as what do we know by observation and experimentation and testing. Every experiment has shown dogs produce dogs. Every single one. No exceptions. So that's science.
That's fine. So can you scientifically show me
Every experiment, like, did the Miller-Urey experiment show that dogs produce dogs?
that creation occurred?
No. I think it's the only logical answer, but I'm not asking that to be taught at taxpayer expense in all the school systems. You guys are demanding that your religion of evolution be taught by everybody and paid for by everybody.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So I get that, Kent. So probably a couple points before I kind of rebut what you specifically said there. Firstly, whether or not you pay your taxes or whatnot is irrelevant to me because I'm in Australia. So it's got nothing to do with my education system at all. Secondly, and it's really just a point that I know you're kind of aware of, there is a challenge that Robert Beatty has for you to debate on him around the tax. I'll leave that up to you and him to work that through, but he just wanted me to kind of mention that with you. But my point here is that given that you've admitted that there is no scientific evidence for creation, after this debate, can I get your agreement that you will go and remove the word science from your organization, Creation Science Evangelism?
Yes, this is so good. Dude, I love this point so much. This is so good. This is probably the best moment of the debate for me right here. This is so good. And of course, Kent's answer is absolutely not. But he doesn't give any explanation of why not. Now, I say this to every person every time I watch a debate. Everybody who's going to debate Kent, he's going to bring up I'm not asking for my theory to be taught in taxpayer expensive public schools. You need to nail him on that point because he is. That's not true. So that would be another criticism of mine. But that's that's my little thing that I harp on every time in every Hovind debate that I wish everybody would do. But I get it. But this is a great point. I wish that maybe he would have done some follow-up questions on these questions, but these are great questions.
And just rename it to creation evangelism, given that you just said there is no scientific evidence to creation at all. Can I get your agreement on that, Ken?
Absolutely not. All of these,
right, okay.
All of the science observation says dogs produce dogs. There had to be a designer. Ian, I want you to explain how this pen came to be, but you cannot use man as your answer. I want a purely naturalistic explanation for an ink pen.
Dumb.
Can you give me one?
Dumb question.
Well, no, because we know that ink pens were made by
you
men.
got it.
I thought this was Ian's rebuttal. Why is Kent asking questions? Donnie, is anybody home? Has the train left the station?
Yes, but we don't know that the universe was made by God. Anyway, so let me just go through quickly some of the rebuttal. So,
and Ian, before you do, I'm going to pause it. Don't worry, you got exactly 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
Okay, now I'll be kind of quick anyway. So I just want to kind of say that I know, Ken, you talked about the fact that the geological column does not exist. Can you please talk to Andrew Snelling who has a PhD in geology in Answers in Genesis? So it kind of suggests to me that if you study the topic, like Andrew Snelling, who's a young earth creationist, does, he agrees that there is a geologic column. So I hear what you say, but you probably need to speak to even a Yek who is more informed on that topic to ask that particular Yek why he believes a geological column exists as well. Now, you mentioned a whole bunch of stuff around 99% of Soviet people believe in communism. That's fine. I mean, that's not really science, but that's okay. That's more of a belief. But I do kind of want to point out that as we know more and more about science, we update our views in science. So if you get sick, Ken, are you going to go and get what have you said before, like your blood kind of taken out? Is that something that you're willing to kind of do? Or are you going to go to a proper doctor with the latest in medicine based on all the science that we have discovered in the last 400 or 500 years? As we know more, we improve, and it becomes less and less likely that what we know is actually wrong. And that's why I kind of believe in science. Now, the whole point about ALU, if I can just spend the last minute or so left on this one, and if you don't want to discuss this one, that's fine. We can move on to something different. But I just want to point out, you said that ALUs may or may not be true. It's true. I am giving you what the scientific consensus is. If you don't believe it, that's fine. Once again, I ask, why should I trust you as opposed to people who have studied this topic their whole lives? So I'm just going to take it that what they tell me and what's in the scientific papers are correct. Now, you said that God created ALUs, and that's my point. Why did God create 99% of these ALUs that does absolutely nothing at all? And why did God build it exactly the same in exact same places as a gorilla or a chimpanzee and whatnot? Why is it exactly the same between us and other primates? And we're not talking about the 250 to 260 ERVs that you discussed in the past. We're talking about 1.3 million exactly the same insertions, of which I'm telling you 99% of them do nothing at all. And the 1% that do something tend to be deleterious. So I'll kind of stop there and kind of hand over to Ken.
Okay, Ian, that was your 6-minute rebuttal, and a portion of that had you and Kent engaging, so that's fine. And let me just restart the timer. Kent, you have 6 minutes of rebuttal, and you can do however you please with it. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, sir. Once again, we have 10 topics on the field. I'm going to have to insist one topic at a time. Which one do you want? What's the most important one? Let's just, Donnie, let's just do the whole debate on just one topic, like fossils. What do they prove? Or ALUs. We can do that next time. Okay. Now, he said there's 100 scientific disciplines. How can I be the only one that's right? Well, of course, his question has the built-in assumption that what he's saying is true. I don't think there's evidence from any of the scientific disciplines that show how any animal can produce a different kind of animal. Nobody's ever seen a dog produce a non-dog or a cow produce a non-cow. You can draw lines on paper and connect them back to an amoeba if you want, but that's not science. That's religion. That's artwork. That's deception. So all of science, all of observation, which comes from the Latin word seer, what do we know? By observations, experimentation, and testing. You can do all the experimentation you want. Every farmer in Australia will tell you kangaroos produce kangaroos without exception. No exception. You might get a big one or a little one, but you're going to get a kangaroo. And I bet there's a limit to how big they can get. I bet you'll never get a kangaroo 50 feet tall. I'd be willing to bet money on that. There's a limit. You might selectively breed kangaroos till you get them 10 feet tall, maybe so. But you're not going to get a 50-footer. There's a limit. And you guys refuse to believe that there are limits to these changes. That's with selective breeding. Just in nature, most of the dogs that man has produced in the last 400 years would not survive in nature. If you turned all the Chihuahuas loose in the woods, most of them wouldn't make it one day. The squirrels would eat them. Okay. Okay, so what? Okay, yeah, they
My
wouldn't
bad.
make it. So
Sorry.
the fact that man has now been able to.
Okay, I was muted. So what I was saying was, why do you think that a squirrel could eat a chihuahua? Like, they're not going to feed on the corpse of a chihuahua like a bunch of rats. That's all I said. Sorry, my bad. My bad.
Selectively breed down to a toy chihuahua. Okay, I bet they'll never get one as big as as small as a flea. There's a limit how small a dog can get. There's a limit to how big a dog can get. I don't know if we reach the limit or not, but they're probably getting pretty close. It's like with the racing the miles. It took a long time to get under 4 minutes, the 4-minute mile. And so, but nobody's ever going to get under 1 minute, not running on their feet. So there are limits. You guys refuse to accept that obvious scientific evidence. It's for everybody to see. Dogs produce dogs.
Kent seems quite flustered. I think you've done what you set out to do, Ian.
Cows produce cows. No exceptions. None. So you said 100 scientific disciplines to support evolution. I think you're mistaken. That's not true. You made that up. You might believe that. Somebody might have told you that, but it's not true. And even if it was, how can I be the only one that's right? How many times through history has been one person who said, look, this isn't right. We're going to change this. George Washington was bled to death by his doctors because all the doctors said, if you're sick, your blood's bad. Take out your blood. It was called the doctrine of humors. They were all wrong, all of them. Somebody said, hey, Bible says the life of the flesh is in the blood.
Okay. The Bible had been written for a long time before the doctrine of humors. Why didn't that stop them from bloodletting people in the first place. And you can't say one person was right because they cited the Bible, because the Bible was written by multiple people. So who was this one person that claimed, oh, the Bible says that the life of the flesh is in the blood, and then they immediately stopped doing the doctrine of humors? Kent, what's your evidence for that claim? Do you have any evidence? What was the person's name? When did this happen? I think you made that up. You're saying that Ian is making stuff up. I think you made that up. Hovind?
Let's not bleed people when they get sick. So history, the science has a long history of the majority being totally wrong on things. And you yourself said, we like to change and improve. Well, good. Well, then change and improve your science to include the fact that we don't know how life got started. Had to be a creator. Had to be. The universe obviously can't be eternal because we see it burning up, winding down, everything. It had to have a beginning. And your ancient civilization, that would be a good one to take a whole other debate on, Donnie. The fact that they find civilization somebody dates older than the flood does not mean their date is correct. The fact that AIG uses carbon dating and stuff, I don't care what AIG does. I don't work for them. They're a good bunch. I like what they do. I recommend them, but I'm no connection with them. I would just.
Answers in Genesis. I like what they do. I recommend them. I'm friends with people who work there, but I have no connection to them. What? That doesn't make sense. You can't have it both ways, dude.
Disagree with them on multiple things. And the civilizations that they're finding and dating older than the flood, well, maybe something survived through the flood. Don't you think the stonework and stone walls and pyramids, what would a flood do to a pyramid?
Okay, this is a question that I had for Ian. In your opening, or whenever you brought up this point, when you were saying that these things were dated to be older than the flood, was the dating done on something that was previously alive, or was it done on something like a stone artifact? Because if it was on something that's alive and he's now talking about dating the bricks of the pyramid, then that seems like pretty dishonest to me.
Get it wet. So they date something older than the flood. But even then, Ian, the dates that you showed were just in a few thousand years. And you want to use this few thousand year difference to therefore extrapolate and believe in billions of years.
No, I don't know why Kent always does this, but no, that's not how people come to that conclusion.
I don't know if your government's as bad as ours, but they don't understand the difference between thousands and billions. There's a big difference. So we can do the civilization thing if you like. You said there's no scientific evidence for creation. I'm just saying I cannot prove scientifically the creation, but I said that's the only logical alternative. If I'm walking
No, it's not.
through the woods and I find this laying on the ground, this ink pen, the only logical alternative or answer is somebody made it. There is no natural explanation available for how.
But we literally already know how it was created, dude. Just like Ian said, this is such a horrible example. Oh, this thing that we know how it was made, explain it, except without using the explanation of how it was made. What? That's stupid. Hovind.
An ink pen can come to be. There just isn't one.
Can you explain this ink pen? Can you explain my Hawaiian shirt? Who created that? Had to be a creator. Had to be a designer. Somebody had to design this ugly ass shirt.
Now I can try to imagine if I want. There is not a naturalistic explanation for how a single cell in your body could form itself.
Yes,
Ian, you probably have 100 trillion cells in your body. Each one of them has 100 trillion atoms. That's a whole bunch.
A lot more than that.
And they're all arranged to work and move smoothly. I think that, and you are probably a copy off the DNA.
Except when people get cancer.
Of your parents, which is a copy off of their parents and their parents. I bet.
Wrong. People are not exact genetic clones of their parents.
Since we are a copy off 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 a copy.
Copy of a copy of a copy. I love that song.
Going back probably 250 generations. It's amazing we can even sit here and talk about it. It's stunning. The replication process, the DNA code is so complex. How on earth can you think it happened by chance? If I was examining in a computer the code for Microsoft Word, and found thousands of lines of code and found, aha, look, at these 5 lines are never used. Therefore, nobody wrote this whole code. That's what you're doing with your insertions here. You're saying, well, these don't do anything. Therefore, nobody wrote this whole code. This is absolutely insane. I feel sorry for you. Okay, time's up. But
Well, that's just fuck you, dude. Don't say you. I feel sorry for you. That's a fucked up thing to say.
why did God create the ALUs? I don't know. Like I said, there might have been a use for them in the past. It'd be pretty cool to be able to feel the magnetic field in the dark and know which way is north and south. Maybe they had something like that. We don't have it anymore. Some animals do have that, you know. Maybe all the primates had it at one time and they lost it. Maybe that's
Are you admitting that human beings are animals and also primates?
a missing line of code that went bad. Okay, your turn. One topic, please. One topic. Donnie.
I got you, brother. Okay, appreciate
Just makes me sick.
the rebuttals. Lots of points in the openings and rebuttals. As we had a little longer, I think.
Why do I stick to a script? Truth doesn't change. 2 + 2 = 4 1,000 years ago, and 2 + 2 = 4 today. I think 2 + 2 is going to equal 4,000 years from now. Okay, truth doesn't change. Hovind doesn't change. Hovind's arguments, they don't change. Okay. Hovind's prison record, it doesn't change. Okay. Hovind?
Openings than usual, so I do appreciate it. What we'll do now is really focus in on the discussion on one point at a time.
What the fuck is this audio? Seriously, what is happening?
Ian, there's a lot of background noise for me. I'm just going to mute you for a second. No worries. So what we're going to do is really just pick out one of the many points brought up in the openings and rebuttals, and just go that way. We'll discuss one at a time. Since Kent just ended with his rebuttal, Ian, why don't we hand it over to you for the first point or the first topic that you'd like to discuss in terms of
so
the debate.
This is a discussion round, is it? Is that really right? I'm sorry, I don't know, Donnie.
That's right.
Right. Okay,
that's right.
Well, Kent, I must say, even your rebuttal, you brought many points up. So as Donnie suggested, I'll focus on one. And if you recall the slide that you can't hear me?
Oh no.
You can't hear me?
He's asking you here. I certainly cannot understand you, brothers. Please speak more clearly and loudly and look at the camera when you do. I'm not understanding most of what you're saying.
Oh my God. This is something that really annoys me that Kent has been doing in so many of his debates recently. Okay. Hey, Kent, maybe you should wear headphones then. Oh, it's not my fault that I don't wear headphones. It's not my fault, even though I know that I'm old and I'm hard of hearing. No, I'm going to blame the other person. Oh, speak up, son. So, pull your pants up and look directly into the camera when you're talking to me. Oh, shut up, dude. Like, fuck off with that. Your old man, like, attitude. Like, get the fuck out of here with that shit, Kent, dude. You're not impressing anybody. You're not impressing me. Like, just stop, bro. If you can't hear, that's on you. Get some headphones and fix the issue. Don't blame other people for your problems, dude. Fuck out of here with that boomer shit.
Okay, I'll try and speak slower and clearer. Maybe it's the Aussie accent. Who knows? Who knows, mate? All right, so I'm just going to say, talk about one thing. And if you recall the photo that I put up when I showed a bear and a seal fossil. So my question to you first, Kent, is, do you think a bear and a seal are the same kind?
A bear, and what's the other word you're using?
Seal.
A seal?
Yeah.
A bear and a seal have many similarities because they had a common designer.
Are they the same kind?
I don't know. I don't think I don't think those animals care how we classify them. A bear and a seal do not. They don't interbreed. They don't mate. So no, a bear and a seal are different kinds.
Right.
The Bible says that.
Why did they?
I'm trying to answer your question, Donnie.
Yeah, go on.
I'm trying to answer his question. The bear and the seal do not interbreed. They cannot bring forth. The Bible says they will bring forth after their kind.
Okay, well, neither can the kaibab squirrel on one side of the Grand Canyon or the Abert squirrel on the other side. They can't interbreed, but are they the same? Are they the same kind? Well, they're both still a squirrel. It's not a squirrel and a manatee. Okay, so your definition has no consistency.
So no, a bear and a seal are not the same kind. The only similarities are because of a common designer.
Go ahead, Ian.
All right, thank you. Okay, so so this is just an example of different young Earth creationists having different views. So Kurt Wise from AIG himself says that a seal is the same kind as a bear. In fact, he calls it a marine adapted bear. And if you look at the fossil, the skulls that I showed, they look almost exactly the same. So that's just one point I wanted to kind of mention.
Well, let me
We
respond to
won't
that.
talk about.
Donnie?
Yep, go on.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay. I know Kurt Wise. He's a friend of mine. And AIG, I know some of the people there. I'm thrilled. I think they're wrong. You showed the skull. There's a whole lot more to both of those animals than a skull. The seal has flippers. Bears don't have flippers. So there are many similarities. Somebody may decide to classify both of them as a mammal. I don't think they care where we classify them. But
Why does he bring up this point? Oh, I don't think the animals care how you classify them. So that's irrelevant, dude. That's so stupid. So this is he's going to talk about something here in a second, and this is something where he's going to bring up that if you have a seal that's only going to try to mate with the other seals, with the female seals. And I really wish that Ian would have brought up a point that, because Kent will say, oh, ask the male of the species. They don't, they only try to mate with the female. If he would have brought up, well, what about bonobo? Because bonobo have been shown to be super gay. Male bonobos in captivity will just hump on the other males all day long. They love it. It's all they do. And I would have loved for him to respond with that to the argument that Kent's going to make here.
I know this, if you turn them all loose into the woods, the male bears are not going to seek out the female seals. They're going to look for a female bear. And same with...
I'm sorry, have you never seen a dog try to hump an animal of a different species, like hump a human being's leg or hump a couch? Dogs will hump lots of different animals. What are you talking about? You think there are no animals that will try to get down with a different species? Okay.
The seals, the male seals are going to look for a female seal. They're not going to look for a chicken or a duck. They bring forth after their kind. If you don't know if it's the same kind, ask the males of the species. They'll tell you. So no, bear and seal are not the same kind. AIG, if they believe that, they're wrong.
Yeah, so Kurt Wise himself said that, and I pulled that quote out. I'm sorry I wasn't able to kind of show that, but trust me, he did. So I think I'm going to revise my original and first question to you, Kent, which I think you didn't answer, but you kind of said I went on a whole range of different topics. My first question as a reminder was, why are you correct and millions of scientists across many disciplines are wrong? I'm going to revise that a little bit to kind of also say, why are you correct and not just millions of secular scientists across 100 scientific disciplines are wrong, but even other young Earth creationists from organizations like AIG that had PhD degrees, why do you think they're also wrong as well? Because we have Kurt Wise saying that a bear and a seal are the same kind. We have Andrew Snelling saying that a geological column exists. They are both educated in their fields. So the question is, why do I believe you, Kent, who do not have a formal degree or work experience in those fields, versus even another young Earth creationist who has the education? Why are you correct and they're wrong? And then extend that to why you are correct and millions of scientists who have spent years and their whole lives studying those specific scientific fields are also incorrect. That was my main and only question.
Okay. Thank you, sir. It's difficult. It's a heavy burden that I carry, Ian. Being right on everything all the time is difficult, but I've done so well for so long. I think I'll just keep it up. I don't care what anybody else thinks. I want to know the truth. The truth is, dogs produce dogs.
What do you even say to that? Like, the amount of arrogance for somebody to say that, it's just unbelievable. Like, oh, I just wanted to say, we have 117 viewers in the live chat. Thank you to the people watching. Thank you. You guys help me keep my sanity in situations like this, so thank you. Now, I may have to go get a refill of my beverage, but I'll just let the debate play if I have to do that.
Nothing else. Seals produce baby seals. Nothing else. Never. No examples in history, no examples in the world of this happening. As far as a degree and legitimate topic, I bet you'd find all the PhD scientists in North Korea believe in communism. Therefore, communism is true by that logic. All the PhD scientists in Iraq believe in Islam. Therefore, Islam is true. It doesn't matter what all the scientists believe. That's just what is being taught. This changes from generation to generation. What is truth seems to change all the time. Like George Washington being bled by his doctors. All the medical scientists in those days, they got a PhD, they got a doctor's degree, and they taught your blood's bad, take your blood out.
I love how Kent will simultaneously disparage people who have a PhD. Oh, they have a PhD. And then later he'll be like, yeah, I have 4 PhDs. That's what makes me qualified. Hovind.
The history is replete with evidence of examples of the majority being totally wrong. And the majority, first of all, you cannot say that it's 99% of scientists believe in evolution. It's more like 30%.
He never said that.
Of the people believe in evolution, or less, maybe more in your country, but that wouldn't matter. Again, that's an argument for majority opinion. It's meaningless. So I appreciate that you finally recognize that I'm right all the time, but that's fine.
Wow, like humble much? Jeez. Oh, I'm right all the time. Well, I guess you weren't right all the time, were you, Kent? I'm not going to elaborate on that. Use your imagination.
I did, then we'd both be wrong. So I'm not going to do that. So look, the number 99% was to do with ALU insertions and not on anything around most scientists believing in it. I think the statistic that I came across was 0.1% of research scientists believe in young Earth. That's 0.1%. So 99.9 is even worse than you think. Okay, so let's move on a little bit then. So you mentioned limits, okay? And I put up some photos of dinosaurs or birds, going through the parent lineage, becoming what looks more and more like avian dinosaurs. I showed photographs of a whale slowly becoming more and more land adapted as we kind of go through their parent kind of lineage. So I want to ask you, Kent, where do you think the limits are? So, and I want some specifics on this, not some vague thing about a pig being the size of Texas. We all know that there are physical limits that are dictated by the law of physics that you can't break. A cow can obviously not jump over the moon because its muscles cannot produce enough energy to basically overcome the force of gravity. So nothing that I can already explain by physics being the limit. I want you to tell me where you think the limits are. Is it possible that a bird, the bones on the feathers of bird can become disarticulated, so it's not a fused wing, and then have claws on the wing, and then slowly those feathers shrink, the wing shrink, and it becomes a claw of some sort without the wing side? Can that happen? Like, where do you think these limits are, and explain where these limits are without giving the rhetoric that you always do that is clearly rhetoric?
Again, I don't know if it's your accent or what, but I'm understanding maybe 40% of what you're saying. But the birds, could the bones be disarticulated and function? There are a lot of birds alive today, a lot of them, probably in the billions, okay? Does anybody see it happen today? Or are they looking at a fossil as the missing link? How do you know that so-called missing link wasn't a whole type of creature that is now gone extinct? Just because it has slightly different bone structure than today's birds, maybe it's something that went extinct. It's not related at all. You don't know that any fossil is related to anything living today. You can imagine that if you'd like, but no, show me it happened in the laboratory. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Show me in the laboratory. There's a lot of lizards out there. I bet you got a bunch of lizards in your country. Turn one into a bird. Then I'll believe.
It's to you, but I can't understand it for you. So, where do I kind of go from here? So, when I was asking the question around limits, what I wanted to know is, through successive little changes, can we make a limb, for example, turn into a flipper? So we talked about the bear, and we talked about the seal. Now, the difference in the skeletal structure is almost the same. They've got the same number of bones and digits, etc. One just looks like a flipper on the outside because the bones are elongated and it's kind of shaped as a flipper, but they still have the same bones. So the question is, can a bear's paw, can that change through different small incremental changes. So it becomes longer and it becomes a flipper. Do you think that that can happen? I mean, where's the limit that stops the bear's paw from changing into a seal's flipper?
Well, we've never seen it happen. Nobody's ever seen a bear's paw turn into anything other than a bear's paw.
Dude, Kent. Okay. First of all, I have not had problems understanding anything that Ian has said in this video. Like, there may have been parts when he was talking a little bit fast, but I never felt like I couldn't understand what he was saying. And this is something that Kent has said to a lot of people during debates. And it's just like, I don't even want to get into that. It's just annoying. But when are you going to get it through your head, Kent, that we don't have to physically observe something to know that it's still science? And so many people have debated Kent and given him the example of Chlamydomonas algae that scientists saw go from single cell to multicellular in 50 weeks. And when I debated Kent, I said, is this a new kind? And he said, yes. Now, I don't think Kent really knew what he was saying when he agreed to that, but still, we don't have to see something to count it as scientific evidence. An observation can be something that is indirect or inferred. Hovind.
I think you will find that the 8 different varieties of bears in the world might have had a common ancestor called a bear. And I don't remember which one does have a slightly longer paw. Do you remember, Damien, from our science collection up there? Some bears, their hand is the paw is slightly longer than others. Okay, it's still a paw. It never turns into a flipper. So you can imagine that if you'd like, but I don't think anybody would know what the limit is. You could ask the bears if you'd like, but I think they're pretty happy as is, and they seem to function just fine. So
it's just such a dumb, childish argument. Like, what are you even supposed to say to that? If the limb of a land-dwelling four-legged animal never turned into a flipper, then why do whale flippers have finger bones in them? And even if you don't want to call them finger bones, why do whale flippers have the exact same bone structure that other mammals do? Why would they need tiny little bones that resemble finger bones? Why do whales have bones that resemble finger bones?
To say to them, is there a limit? What do we observe? Science is not what we imagine, it's what we observe. We observe bears make baby bears, without exception. And they never turn
So
into
your definition of science is if you can see it happening today. That's what your definition of science is. Because what we have is we have fossils, we have skeletons, and we can date these fossils and skeletons through multiple different ways to tell us how old they are. And you know what, Ken? They provide a really great gradation, between, those examples of those paws becoming longer and just changing over time. All right. So my question to you is that evidence in your eyes? Because we can date these fossils. Now, I know you're probably going to say those dates are not true and stuff like that. Then the question then becomes why do you think it's not true? And it's not just one particular radiometric dating that's incorrect. It's why do different types of ways that we can date a fossil, why are they all incorrect? Because they're all showing a similar date.
Okay, you need to simplify your question here. If you're going to ask Kent a question, then try to simplify the question. And when you have a question mark come up in the sentence, just stop it right there. You don't want to say more things after that. Don't ask more than one question. Okay, and we have a super chat from Snake Was Right. For $5, it says he's avoiding the question as always. It isn't did it happen? The question is, can it happen? The flipper from a foot. And it's only science if we can see within our own human lifetime a foot turn into a flipper. Well, Ken, I've never seen a mountain form in 10 minutes, but mountains still form. Just saying.
Use the ways of dating to date those fossils. We see the change. And what I was trying to show in that picture between the bird and the dinosaur is if you go back to the parent lineage, you can see micro changes that kind of change and morphs the physiology of that bird into what then looks like a theropod dinosaur. and it's all through successive changes over tens and tens of millions of years. So my question, Ken, is what do you want as evidence? Is it that you need to see it happen now? Is that your definition of evidence? Or will you accept that where we use science to date something, and then we can piece together the puzzle that shows exactly that picture I showed you of a bird becoming theropod dinosaur?
Well, you threw together about 20 assumptions before you asked your question. First of all, I don't think there is a geologic column. I think there are different layers. Would you answer my question before we go on about the geologic column? How do you get petrified trees standing up, connecting all these layers?
Boo, boo, you're dodging, boo. This is why I say you got to this is why you have to simplify your questions, because if you don't, then Kent is going to say, oh, well, you've got all these assumptions in here, and you brought up 17 different topics, and Hovind, I'm Hovind, Kent Strong, I'll take you on, Kent Strong to take on anyone. Who said the Bible's wrong? Kent Strong, I'm Kent Strong. That's my new song. That's my new Hovind song.
How long does it take?
Oops. Okay, we have a super chat from Chen official. Says, good advice, AJ. Thanks, mate, for Australian $2.99. Well, thank you for the super chat. And I think you did a great job. But for people who are watching this who may debate Kent in the future, take heed of my advice.
Dead tree stand up in Australia before it falls over.
All right, so a petrified. So we're going to come back to that question, Ken, but I'll allow this digression. So, you know, if you think there was a global flood, you would think that you would find these petrified trees in everywhere. But why do we only ever find them in environments that are essentially swamp-like, as if a tree died in a swamp and that swamp kind of gets flooded and deposits silt, and then, you know, the water disappears and it floods again and just continuously deposits silt until you see these layers that you're calling different strata. Now, I don't know the exact geological term, but I understood strata to mean things like a sandstone layer, a limestone layer, not the same kind of layer that show differences within it. All right. So if there was a global flood, wouldn't you be finding these trees everywhere and not just in environments that we see that can explain the fact that these dead trees stand as over the years still gets deposited in what you're seeing as layers today?
Okay, super chat from Snake Was Right for $2. It says, AJ, have you ever seen a worldwide flood? No, but when I was a young child, I would simulate a flood environment in the bathtub with my rubber duckies and my bath toys, and that's a pretty good amalgam of a worldwide flood. So, I mean, if I saw it then, and I mean, that's, to me, that's pretty good evidence. Hovind?
So that's my answer.
Hovind?
Well, you are imagining that it only.
Well, you are Hovind. Hovind. He's got Kent off of his game. I love to see that. Good job.
Only happens just one petrified tree standing up through all the layers would discredit the layers being different ages. Sometimes they're
not different strata, though, Kent. They're not different strata. They're not going through a limestone layer, a chalk layer, a volcano ash, or whatnot, which is essentially, what we define as the different eras or the millions of years in between. They're going through the same layer, but those layers itself show annual differences. Whereas, a flood happened, deposited a bunch of silt, the flood recedes. Next year, maybe another flood occurred, deposit another. So those are the layers that we're talking about. We're not talking about layers that go through different geological strata, limestone, chalk, volcanoes. That's not what you're showing.
I have pictures. I can show you pictures, and there's several of them up in Tennessee. They're still standing there. Petrified trees running through a seam of coal, and then many more layers of rock, and then another seam of coal.
Those are not geologic layers of the geologic column, though. And plus, that picture, Aaron Ra went around to several different paleontologists in that same state, and none of them could verify that the picture was real. None of them could verify that there's ever been an example of a tree a polystrate tree going through multiple coal layers. They had never heard of such a thing. And so I think you made that up, Ken. Hovind?
Mary Lee and the Blue Creek Formation of coal, which are dated as being millions of years different in age, but yet.
Oh, now the dating techniques matter. Now we're going to use the dating techniques for when they support my argument. Oh, okay. Okay, that's fair.
One tree connects them. All of these layers that we see on the earth were laid down in one big flood rapidly, probably in 1 year, and then many of them were bent while the layers were all still soft. If these layers are different ages, when you try to bend rock, it's going to crack. These were all soft while they were being bent in these crazy shapes. They're found all over the world. It's not just one location, though one would prove the point. I think if the flood made all the layers rapidly, and then they all bent while they were soft and then hardened over the next few hundred years, that would easily explain it. But I know the Bible says the scoffers do not want to believe in the flood. That's their big objection. But I cover on my video series about the folded mountains and all this kind of stuff. But one tree standing up would destroy your geologic column. And
those trees, would you say that they were erect, Mr. Rockhard Hovind?
I'd like you to answer the question. You say the layers are different ages. I know you believe that. Where's this next layer coming from, Ian? If it's moved from here to here, that's not a different age. Stacking your books on your desk does not make the top one younger. You just moved it to a new location. How are these new layers coming from outer space? Where are they coming from?
Okay, one topic at a time. The layers are dated when the layers form. So you have a layer, and then another layer forms on top of it. When that layer forms, that's when you start that's the birth of that layer, okay? In geology, you reset the clock, even though the materials that made up that layer could be this age or different ages. You reset the clock to 0 when the layer forms. So we're not talking about the age of the material. We're talking about the age of the layers themselves, okay? So if you have a layer that's, let's just say 1,000 years old, and then you have a new layer that forms on top of that, and then 1,000 years later, you have another layer that forms on top of it, you would be able to look at different ages of those layers and date them as having different ages. And radiometric dating gives you absolute dates. So you can say, oh, the material that made up these layers is all the same age, but we're not talking about that age. We're talking about the age of the actual layers themselves. Okay, and we have another super chat from Chen for $2.99 Australian, and it says, rock hard Hovind, laughing till I'm crying emoji, AJ.
If they're already on the earth being reshuffled and moved around by water or something, it's still the same age. It doesn't change the age. Why do you believe the top layer is younger than the bottom layer? Why do you believe that?
Okay, Kent. So just on the topic of trees, I just want to point out that somewhere out there is a tree whose sole job it is to replace the oxygen that you have wasted. After this debate, can I suggest you find it and apologize to it? Okay. So look, it's as you believe that all matter in the universe was created by God at the same time. If that's the case, Kent, can you tell me which of your children are younger and older? It's not about what those layers are made from. It's about how they are formed, and how they are formed is basically how we date them. So we know one layer is younger and older because they were formed differently, and there were different radiometric isotopes that were kind of created as they were formed. So we know that this particular layer is younger or older than another.
Well said. Very well said. I agree. I'm in total agreement.
So the question back to you, Ken, if God created all matter at the same time, how do you know that Eric is, I don't know, actually, is he older or younger than Kent, Andrews, or your daughter? How do you know that? They're all from the same atoms, aren't they?
I'm just not understanding the question here. Donnie, can you translate for me?
Boo! Boo! You're dodging. Boo! You heard what he said. Boo! Throw tomatoes at this man. Boo this man. Boo!
How do I know what now? Say it slowly one more time.
Okay, let me say it slowly. And I'm sorry, Kent, about my accent, but I also don't speak redneck. Anyway, so my question is simple. The way we date the layers is based on how those layers are formed, not by the atoms that sit in that layer. And then I made an analogy towards how do you know which of your children are older and younger if God created the matter or the atom at the same time? Because it is how they were formed. So a volcanic ash layer will have different radiometric isotopes that we can date than, let's say, a limestone layer. That's how we know one is older than the other, because of how it's formed and then the evidence it leaves behind as it's formed. So that's how we measure it. Does that make sense to you, Ken? I can't
And
really
before you
explain it
guys
any better.
and before you guys continue, let's just make sure that the remaining portion of the discussion here is, free from any little digs or insults or anything.
Boo. Okay, and Kent saying, "Oh, I feel sorry for you," isn't a dig. Yeah, because Kent has never insulted somebody or never degraded somebody during a debate. That's never happened. It's never happened. Okay, and another super chat from Ian. It says, "I got the children idea from AJ. Thanks, man." Well, you'll have to refresh my memory on that, because I do remember some argument that I had talked about involving his kids, but I think I know what you're referring to. But yeah, that was amazing. So I actually have not seen this far into the debate, so I'm seeing this for the first time.
Anything like that, but for the most part, we've got a sophisticated discussion going on here, so I appreciate it. Okay, over to you, Kent, for your response.
Okay. I think he completely avoided my question. The fact that limestone forms differently than sandstone, etc. I live in a gravel pit. It was donated to us, 140 acres, about 70 hectare, and it has hundreds of layers. And we have layers of gravel, sand, clay. Whether it's limestone or sandstone or slate or shale or there's many different types of rock. How could they be different ages was my question. How it formed has nothing to do with it. If there's a limestone layer on top of a sandstone layer, and we know limestone forms differently than sandstone, is this limestone coming from outer space? How it formed has nothing to do with it, Ian. Where did it come from?
Do you agree, Kent, that when you have a layer and something appears on top of it, you make the assumption that what came on top of it is probably younger than what was underneath it?
No,
Do you
there's
agree
the
with that in the
problem.
first place?
No, Ian, watch this.
And
I'm going to shuffle these cards. Is that card younger because it's on top?
Well, I mean, if you want
No.
to get specific to it, those cards would have been made in succession. All right, so they weren't all created at the same time. So if there's a way to date when the machine made that particular ace of spades versus an ace of diamonds, then yes, you could probably tell one is created younger or older than the other.
Okay, real quick. This is so annoying. So we need to talk about how the English language works real quick. So in the English language, you have nouns, and a noun is a person, a place, or a thing. So when you have the material that makes up a layer, I don't know if Ian said this, but talking about how limestone forms is always something that's good to bring up in a debate like this, because it is relevant. The way that limestone forms is that crustacean animals that have shells that are made of calcium carbonate sink to the bottom of the seafloor in massive numbers, by the millions, billions. They die, they fall to the bottom of the seafloor, and then they get compressed through tectonic activity and geologic, functions. Those shells get compressed into effectively chalk, or what's called limestone. Now, those individual shells, you could say, are not all the same age, but when they become compressed, now you have a limestone layer. Okay, so layer, that's a noun. The body of shells, the collection of shells, that's a different noun. So that's a different object. So when you have an object, which is a layer, when the layer forms, when it finishes forming, you reset the clock to 0. This is how it's done by professional geologists. And so, yeah, it's going to be younger than the layer under it. Whereas cards are all created, and that deck of cards is one object. So you can't cheat and say, oh, if I separate this one part of the object, if I shuffle these cards around, is this one younger? No, because we know those are all the same age. This is what Kent does. He says, oh, this thing, we already know the explanation of it. What about this other wrong explanation? Could that be true? And it's like, no, well, we already know the explanation of that. Don't be stupid. Don't be a Hovind. But, you know, he is just refuses to ever give way on this. Kent will die on this hill.
Every speck of dirt on the planet is the same age, whether it's 6,000 or 6 trillion. Where is this top layer coming from? You're saying it's younger, but if it just got moved from over to the side to on top, it's not changing the age. How it forms is not changing the age. Your geologic column is a joke. It doesn't exist. It's all made up.
I think what you're misunderstanding is, Ken, is you're basically saying the dirt or the atoms are the same age. And I agree with that. They're all the same age. I mean, they came out from the Big Bang, so I get that. But the configuration of that makes a clay or volcano deposit, etc., they're different ages. A volcano ash doesn't just pop by itself and occurs. It occurs because of magnet that's flowing from the ground and, you know, coming out, etc., or whatnot. So we can date that particular ash, and we know whether that date is, you know, younger or older than, let's say, a limestone that was kind of formed. Now, the atoms, if that's what you're saying, are all the same age. I'll give you that. The atoms are all the same age. I get that. But the configuration of the atoms that make up a particular layer, you can date how those configuration was created. Now, one of the things that I think you mentioned before, Kent, that I kind of want to get your take on is you talked about bent rock layers. Okay, so if bent rock layers occurred because it was folded during the global flood when it was soft, when the mud was soft. Can you explain to me why we also see fossils in those bent rock layers also bent as well? It's almost as if when you have heat and pressure deep on the ground, that can cause deformation of the rock. And because the fossil was fossilized, it also bent along with it as well. So if the nose flood is correct, wouldn't you think that the bent rock layers would be bending around the fossil that wouldn't be itself bent? Can you please explain that, Ken?
Well, we find like this piece of slate the man is holding in our museum is a piece of petrified wood running through 12 different layers of slate. The layers of slate are conformed around the petrified wood. Yes, I think the layers could form around things in the way, like this one. They found a fossil marine creature standing on its nose. The nose is in a totally different layer, millions of years different in age than the one where the rest of the body is. It's the same creature.
So now layers can have different ages? Those layers in that picture are not bent. What are you talking about? It's like, does his arguments, it's just like, oh, depending on whatever I'm currently saying, I could just throw out whatever previous argument whatever hill I was previously dying on, I'll just change that. Okay, dude. And I don't even know if I would agree that all of the atoms are the same age, because atomic nuclei didn't coalesce until about 300,000 years after the Big Bang, 300,000 or 400,000 years, when the universe cooled down enough that you could have nuclei, you could have atoms bonding with protons and form atomic nuclei to form solid matter in the first place. Did all of the solid matter in the universe form at that time? I don't know, because some stars are older than other stars. And we know that the only way to get certain elements is by supernova. And so all the supernova explosions did not happen at the same time. So some elements on Earth are likely younger than others, because the only way to get certain elements up to iron is to fuse and then pass that as supernovae. So I don't know if I agree with that point. Probably not that important, but, you know, just saying.
Did it balance on its nose for millions of years? What I'd like to get you to understand, Ian, your whole geologic column is the problem, not the solution. The best way to explain all these layers, one log going through 2 different seams of coal. I got pictures here a second ago. 2 different seams of coal that are dated at different ages, but yet one tree is connecting them with a lot of layers of rock in between. Why would they name the layers of coal? Why would they give the ages different? The idea that all those layers are different ages is the problem. They're not. They can't be. They had to all form rapidly in 1 year. This top card is not younger than the rest of them. If you shake a jar of dirt and sand and rocks, it'll separate into layers. I got the thing on my table here someplace. Here we go. If I flip this thing over, it'll make many layers. All the layers are the same age. They're all in the thing at the same time. There is no geologic column. And I know that's your Bible, and I know you believe in that, but it's baloney. You don't believe in my Bible, that's fine. You believe what you want. I don't believe in your Bible either. I think this will make 20 layers in less than 2 minutes. And all the layers are the same age. Your geologic
but those
column,
layers are not different. They're not different. So you're not
Actually,
gonna have a
Ian, before you
limestone layer.
respond, I just wanted to jump in here real quick, gentlemen.
Yeah.
The discussion's been moving so fast. The discussion portion, at least that I had, the agreed upon time ended about 2.5 minutes ago. So I don't want to just cut it off mid-topic. How much longer do you gentlemen want?
I'll leave it to Kent. I'll leave it to Kent. If Rockhard Kent wants to go for longer, that's fine with me. If he wants to end it, that's also fine as well.
I didn't understand a single syllable of that, but I'd like to take audience questions now.
Okay. So that was my question. The discussion, the agreed upon discussion time ended 2.5 minutes ago. So we will stick to the format, as we do have just about 1 million questions that have come in from this very, very lively chat. It's been very hard to keep up with the live chat and the discussion from Kent and Ian, but I really enjoyed this. So
I agree. So, unless I don't know if Ian is still in the audience, unless there's anything good in the Q&A, I'm probably going to call the stream here, because I'm honestly becoming exhausted listening to Kent's voice. It's causing me physical anxiety and heartburn, and I think I may need to see a doctor quite soon. So we've been going for about 1 hour and 36 minutes. Excellent debate. I think Ian won the debate. I think Kent had very poor responses to Ian's questions, or no responses at all. I think Kent was belligerent and not listening most of the time. And I think Ian brought up a lot of good points that were dodged or not properly answered. So I think we can call it there. I will go back and watch the Q&A later, because I'm sure that there's some good moments in there. But yeah, I will say for this video, I think we're going to call it there. And also, I've done that experiment where you put the dirt and clay, sand, gravel, and clay in a jar and shake it up. It doesn't separate into distinct layers. All the layers stick together. I made a shit joke about Kent. Well, I'll go back and watch the Q&A at a different time. But I want to say thank you guys in the live chat. Thank you for being here. We still have over 100 people in the live chat. Thank you to all of my subscribers. I passed the 5,000 subscriber mark, so that is awesome. Very exciting. The future of my channel is looking very, very good. And right now I'm working on a video that's going to be another pre-recorded video. It's going to be a collab with Skeptic. If you know that channel, he's done some collabs with Emma Thorne. And we're working on a video that's going to be about Hovind talking about peer review. So if you haven't seen his channel, definitely check that out. I'll throw a link in the description. And thank you to all the people who support me on Patreon. You guys are awesome. I now have like 35 patrons, which is amazing. You guys are so generous. Thank you. Thank you to the people who sent super chats. And hopefully the next time I do a live stream, I'll be able to get my OBS back up and running, so we won't have to do the StreamYard thing. But yeah, great job by Ian. I definitely think you did a great job. And I had a few points where I think it could have maybe done better, but I think you did a really good job with what I saw. So congratulations to you, and congratulations on your hot wife. Okay, so we're going to end it here. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.